Well, the aims at the start of the campaign, the players had spoken about it, Sam had spoken about it. The first aim, it's always got to be the way. The first aim is to make sure you're in the division at the end of the season that you start the season in. That's got to be the first aim. That's the first aim for all clubs. Little did we know how well it was going to end up, but it went magnificently well. The other big aim, I think, is to make a better Premiership start than they had done in recent seasons. Speed coming along to sign for Bolton Wanderers. What an acquisition. He'd really done his homework there, Sam. Later in the season, of course, El Hadji Diouf had a big part to play. Fernando Hierro, probably up until Christmas, we didn't see the best out of Fernando Hierro, and Stelios Giannakopoulos would probably suggest that his better form came after Christmas as well. Of course, he'd just been come back from playing in the Euro 2004, a winner with Greece. So the ingredients were there. I felt the mix was right at the start of the campaign, and they got off to a magnificent start. JJ Okocha hadn't scored a Premiership goal in the last campaign, rattling two by the end of the first game, 4-1 win at the Reebok against Charlton. Terrific performance. Went on to win 3 of the first 4 games in the Premiership. Slight bit of a hiccup away at Fulham, but built from that. You could see what they're trying to do. I think that absolutely laid the foundation then for the remainder of the season. September, well, they did it again, didn't they? Manchester United, late goal. Looked as though Bolton Wanderers at long last were going to beat Manchester United at the Reebok Stadium. Terrific performance, very unlucky not to win. Got a lucky second goal, as I recall it, with Les Ferdinand. But United, they never know when they're beaten, and they did it again. They stole a point. Sam would be very disappointed not to take all 3 points. But and again, at Arsenal, I mean, there is a disappointment when you don't win a game, particularly when you get so close to the end of the 90 minutes. But the real fighting spirit came out, Bolton Wanderers at Highbury, and a terrific performance to grab a point against the Gunners, who at that stage of the season, I think everybody thought were going to win the title themselves. We now know that didn't happen, of course, but fantastic performance by Bolton away at Highbury. So perhaps that impetus that they had against Manchester United kept it going, came back again when it looked like they were going to lose again at Highbury. They've lost there in the later stages of Premiership games in recent seasons, but they came back fantastically well, and all credit to them. It was a terrific performance. Well, started off poorly. Probably one of the most disappointing performances of the whole season at the Hawthorns, because at the time Bolton were boiling and bubbling, and you thought, well, great opportunity to push on from the start that they'd had already. Didn't materialise. Partly because West Bromwich Albion played very well on that night, and it was a hostile atmosphere at the Hawthorns Stadium. I seem to remember JJ Okocha not being at his best. He'd had problems with an injuries concern, so that didn't start the month very well. But I'll tell you what, it might not have started well, but it finished terrifically well. Game against Newcastle United, and we all know what Graham Souness said about that, about the Bolton long ball tactics. When somebody else does it, you know, it's a long pass. When Bolton Wanderers do it, it's a long ball. I think Mr Souness ought to study the facts of the matter before making statements. Always difficult, though. Everybody's in a high emotional state right at the end of the game. I've got to tell you, though, I thought it was a bit of sour grapes that coming out of Newcastle that day, and that was a very important and significant win for the Wanderers. Disappointing start, disappointing end to a game away at Middlesbrough. Terrific performance yet again. A match that Bolton Wanderers controlled for maybe 89, 90 minutes. Sam was ripping his hair out at the end. They conceded a last-minute equalising goal against Boateng, of course. So that in itself, a game that Wanderers had chances to win, should have won. Jääskeläinen sent off, didn't help the situation, probably unnerved them and unsteadied them towards the end. But moving on to Stamford Bridge, and don't forget as well, they lost at home to Aston Villa before they went to Stamford Bridge. It was a Hitzelberger humdinger, wasn't it? What a great strike it was, and it came from nowhere. So then they went to Stamford Bridge. All the pundits writing them off, no chance. Chelsea playing well, all the superstars in the team, revved up, ready to go, thought it was going to be a landslide victory, and Bolton Wanderers, again the spirit shows through. They're 2 down. Even I thought they're going down here, and it could have been 4 or 5. They got back in, Kevin Davies header, and then a fantastic equalising goal from Jaidi, close towards the death, and they came back from 2 goals down. For me, that was the most enjoyable and perhaps the most exciting match of the season. Then the start of the slump. Very unlucky to lose at Goodison Park against Everton. I actually thought the referee did them, to be perfectly truthful with you, but in control, playing well. And let's not forget, Everton have had a fantastic season. To go there and put on that sort of performance away from home showed a bit of class, bit of a razzmatazz. Give me the ball, passed it around really well, got themselves in front. Wasn't helped by the referee's decision. That was a significant factor eventually, I think, in Bolton Wanderers losing. But they were still unlucky to lose that game. Probably as well as they've played all season in a match that Bolton Wanderers lost. Similar story at Norwich City at Carrow Road. Started off brightly, twice in the lead at Norwich City. They were battling for the Premiership lives. Even then, they started to battle. And that was probably a big, big boost for them at the time when Norwich beat Bolton Wanderers. But the game was there to be won away at Carrow Road. Bolton underperformed, just couldn't step on from a 2-1 lead. They were also leading 1-0 and just failed to capitalise. And then poor City defeat at the Reebok away at Manchester United. And then, of course, a home defeat against Blackburn Rovers. Sam would say Bolton were definitely below par in those matches. Probably, collectively, the most disappointing performances of the season. Well, I think the 1-1 draw against West Bromwich Albion was the most important result of the season. Didn't play particularly well, Bolton Wanderers. Had a lot of the game. Looked for all the life as though they were going to lose again. And then the man again, we mentioned him earlier on, El Hadji Diouf, off the bench, came on, changed the game, changed the outlook, scored the equalising goal. I think the goal scored by El Hadji Diouf against West Bromwich Albion was the most important goal in the whole of the Bolton Wanderers season, because they were really struggling up till then. Had they have lost at home to West Brom, confidence would have been really, really low. They didn't. They managed to get a point, almost as good as a win in the end. And when you score late on to get a point in a game of football, the lads go off. It's almost as good as a victory. That was a very, very significant point, even though they didn't win the game against West Bromwich Albion. Growing confidence, going to the next few games, beat Arsenal at the Reebok Stadium. Fantastic headed goal from Stelios Giannakopoulos. And then it gives you then more momentum to carry it forward. You win a game, you take the advantages, you take the positives, and all of a sudden, all the negativity that Bolton had shown previously, it's all gone. Got revenge against Blackburn Rovers as well, and you're off up and running once again then on the final furlong of the season, and Bolton's confidence is high. Pretty decent month overall. Very interesting game away at Newcastle United. I remember the Newcastle game at the Reebok Stadium when Graham Souness criticised Bolton's tactics, the long throws, what he termed as the long ball. Strange how football is, isn't it? We go up to St James's Park and Newcastle are hoofing it forward all afternoon for Shearer to chase. Bolton scored a great goal, by the way, at St James's Park. Stelios Giannakopoulos, great move, one of the best goals and most intricate movement goals, arguably, of the whole season. But Newcastle won it in the end, so they had a little bit of revenge. But overall, Bolton pretty pleased with the performance. Always a intimidating place to go to, St James's Park. Bit of added spice as well with what Graham Souness had said earlier in the season. But a good game. Probably Newcastle maybe is just about deserved to take the points in the end. But Bolton, again, what I've liked about them all season, they always show the battling qualities, even if they're losing and even if they're not playing particularly well. They've got a great spirit and they've got a great resilience about the team. 2 wins in the Premiership. Unfortunately, they went out of the FA Cup, but a very important win away at Manchester City, particularly so they'd lost their 6-2 the previous season. So again, can you imagine Sam saying to the players, let's not have a repeat of that. No, Wanderers fans wanted to see a repeat of that, and it wasn't a repeat of that, but who pops up on the far post? Again, another crucial goal from El Hadji Diouf. I know he's got his critics, but trust me on this, he can play. Put him on a football field, get the ball into his feet, he can control it, he can create problems, he can score goals, he holds the play up, he's a great link-up player as well. And not the best of games, as I recall, at the City of Manchester Stadium, but nonetheless, a very, very important win. And of course, another significant factor, he's there again, El Hadji Diouf, FA Cup defeat against Arsenal, 8 minutes, bit of rough and tumble with the Arsenal goalkeeper, Lehmann. Diouf is off. We'll never know if that was the defining moment. Sam would probably say it was, because had he stayed on, Bolton had beaten Arsenal not that long ago, changed the whole course of the game. Lundberg's goal won it in the end for the Gunners, and Bolton Wanderers were out of the FA Cup. But still, the season and this European mission is still on course and absolutely being driven forward by the players at this stage of the season for me and Sam. I bet Sam had little to say to the players round about this stage, because at the back of their minds they were at this point, I think, doubly determined to finish higher in the Premiership table than they had done the season before. They finished 8th. They were so determined to do better than that this time round. April, well, I don't think they played on the 1st of April at Liverpool away at Anfield. I think it was the 2nd, but they didn't have much luck, I know that. Probably the month of April was when the Champions League aspirations disappeared, because the expectation was there. I have to say, away at Anfield, when they lost to an Igor Biscan goal, they played very, very well. Can't remember a Bolton Wanderers team playing so well at Anfield and to get nothing out of that game. And this was the first match in April, and again probably a bit of a confidence factor in there with the players after that. They played so well, they controlled practically the whole of the game, missed a couple of opportunities to score themselves. Biscan popped up to head in at the far post after Traore had tricked his way into the penalty area. Probably Sam would have something to say about the defensive situation in that. Had opportunities to win it, very disappointed in the end. And of course we get down, we then failed, I think, to beat Southampton at the Reebok Stadium. Another significant match where Southampton, though, give them a bit of credit, they were battling. First half performance, nothing wrong with it. Should have scored more goals, Bolton, against Southampton. Had the opportunities to win that game. Had the opportunity to get it boxed off by half time. And it's not always like that, football. You know, football matches, it doesn't always go the way that fans and managers and players would like it to do. Didn't get it boxed off by half time. Should have done, though. They had their opportunities to do so. And that was it, I think, as far as the champ. Realistically, if not theoretically and mathematically, the failure to beat Southampton at Reebok, that was probably it as far as a Champions League place was concerned. Well, the final month, of course, again, is there again, isn't he? We've talked about him many times. El Hadji Diouf popped up at Portsmouth. Sam thought about not playing him in that game because he'd been sent off in the corresponding fixture at the Reebok Stadium when he'd had a bit of argy-bargy and, of course, the spitting incident with Aaron Dezou. And apparently, Diouf rang Sam up and said, look, I want to play, I'm all right, I've got my right head on. And what a great goal he scored. Another match which really, I think, Wanderers were a touch unlucky not to win. They equalised late on in that game, Portsmouth. As results went elsewhere for the Wanderers on that day, probably didn't really matter in the end, but what a celebration. And again, a piece of history being made by Bolton Wanderers. The lads they've got at the club now, you know, I don't know if they realise this, they're making history. They made it that day at Fratton Park. First time in the club's 131-year history they'd ever qualified for European competition. And they did it in style. They weren't far off Europe where they did it either, in Portsmouth, to be honest with you. And that too, I thought, was a pretty significant factor. It was a terrific performance and a nice celebration at the end. A game I think Sam left almost immediately after to avoid all the traffic and left it to Brownie to tell everybody how pleased that they were to have qualified for Europe. And again, El Hadji Diouf, you might not like him, but whatever you do, you just can't ignore him.